Betrayed by her past. I discovered my wife was still secretly seeing clients from her past. And shockingly, our twins aren't biologically mine, shattering my world and forcing me to face betrayal. I still remember the first time I met her, as clearly as if it had been yesterday. I was 30, and well, she was selling herself for money, something I learned only after we got to talking. The moment I realized it, I felt an urge to save her, to be the man who could pull her out of that life, the one she had quietly waited for. A prince who would change everything. At first, I told myself I was doing the right thing. She had this softness about her, a vulnerability that made me believe she'd never had anyone care for her before. I can help her, I thought, and she'll finally have a chance at something real, something normal. I never imagined that hope could blind me to the reality. We spent hours talking, her sharing glimpses of her past while I listened, nodding, offering reassurance. "You don't have to do this anymore," I told her. "You can be free. I'll be here for you." She smiled softly, eyes shimmering, as though she had waited for someone to say exactly that. Friends warned me. I remember the night after I introduced her to a few of them. "Be careful," my best friend said, his voice heavy. "You're taking on her mistakes, her past. Don't fool yourself. This won't end well." I waved it off, convinced that love could override experience, that commitment could rewrite history. That I convinced myself she wanted the same thing, a real future, a normal life. And in those first months, she seemed to want it too. I didn't see the cracks yet, didn't hear the whispers of the life she still carried in the shadows. I just saw her, as I wanted to see her, hopeful, fragile, and waiting for someone like me to believe in her. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was. I thought I was rescuing her, but maybe, just maybe, I was rescuing an idea of her that never truly existed. I remember the night vividly, the one where my friends laid it all out, and I stubbornly refused to see what was coming. We were sitting in my apartment, beers on the table, the city lights glowing through the window, and the mood was casual until my best friend, Mark, leaned forward with a serious expression. "Look, man, I'm going to be blunt," he said, voice low but firm. "You're walking into a storm here. You know her past, you know what she did, and you think you're going to save her. But you can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. Don't carry her mistakes like they're yours." I nodded, trying to smile, trying to brush it off, but inside, a flicker of doubt stirred. "Mark, I know what I'm doing. I've thought this through. I'm not just some guy who's naive about life. I can handle this," I replied, trying to convince not just him, but myself. Another friend, Lisa, chimed in, more gently but with equal concern. "I get that you care, but 5 years from now, what if it blows up in your face? What if she keeps parts of that life hidden? You could end up heartbroken, or worse, living a lie." Her eyes were soft but pleading, almost begging me to consider the consequences. That I remember the lump forming in my throat, a mix of defensiveness and irritation. "You don't get it," I said a little too sharply. "I can love her. I can support her. I know she wants something real. She's waiting for someone like me, someone who sees her worth beyond her past." Mark shook his head slowly. "We're not saying she doesn't deserve love, but be honest with yourself. Are you prepared for the fallout if things go south? You're not responsible for fixing her entire life. You can't rewrite history." I wanted to argue, to prove them wrong, but their words lingered like a shadow in my mind. That night, I went to bed convinced I was doing the right thing, imagining the life we would build together. Yet, deep down, a tiny voice whispered doubts. The warnings of my friends echoing faintly. Seeds planted that would grow into harsh reality years later. The first few years we spent together felt like a dream I had meticulously constructed in my mind. We moved into a small apartment in a quiet part of the city, and I dedicated myself to building a life that felt stable, loving, and normal. I wanted her to feel safe, to leave the past behind, and I convinced myself that my love could erase any lingering shadows. Every morning, I'd wake up to her curled next to me, the sunlight falling across her hair, and I'd remind myself that this was the life I had chosen. We shared routines, laughed at mundane things, and slowly built what seemed like a home. I cooked breakfast sometimes. She would make coffee, and we'd sit together talking about the day ahead. For a while, it worked. It really felt like we were building something real. But even in those early moments of bliss, I couldn't ignore the occasional flicker of unease. She would sometimes disappear for hours, claiming errands or visits with friends, and though I never wanted to mistrust her, a small voice in my mind would whisper doubts. I told myself it was paranoia, a side effect of knowing her past. I dismissed it because I loved her too much to consider that the past might still be alive in the present. Our friends watched our life together with mixed emotions. Some were quietly impressed that I had given her a chance to turn things around, while others continued to voice subtle warnings. "You're too forgiving," Mark had said more than once. "Don't let history repeat itself." I would nod politely, smiling through their concern, convinced that our love was strong enough to survive anything. During those years, we began planning for a family. The thought of children filled me with hope and determination. I wanted to believe that a family could be our ultimate anchor, that love and responsibility could solidify a future free from the past. We laughed, we cried, we shared dreams and fears, and I genuinely believed that the life we were building was real and lasting. Looking back now, I see how blind I was. I saw what I wanted to see: a woman redeemed, a family intact, and a life untouched by shadows. I didn't see the subtle traces of her former life, the small decisions she made that hinted the past was not entirely gone. My optimism, my devotion, and my refusal to accept warnings laid the groundwork for the storm that was yet to come. It started with small, almost imperceptible things. A phone buzzing late at night, which she quickly silenced when I glanced at it. Strange messages that she would delete before I could see them. A receipt for a coffee I hadn't been to, in a part of town she rarely visited. At first, I dismissed these as coincidences. Minor slip-ups, nothing to worry about. But a gnawing feeling in my chest told me otherwise. One evening, while organizing the kitchen, I noticed a piece of paper partially tucked under the fridge. It was folded neatly, but my curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, and my stomach sank. The note contained a list of names and dates, all very recent. They didn't make sense at first, until I realized some of them were locations I recognized from the city. Places she had told me she never went anymore. That I tried to shake it off, to convince myself I was imagining things. "Maybe it's old," I muttered, heart racing. "Maybe she's just keeping contacts for friends, nothing else." But the unease only grew, a persistent shadow creeping into the corners of my mind. I found myself double-checking her stories. Noticing inconsistencies I had previously overlooked, that I began observing her more carefully: how she talked on the phone, the way she sometimes seemed distracted, almost nervous when certain names or places came up. I caught myself imagining scenarios I didn't want to believe: secret meetings, hidden contacts, something from her past that had never truly disappeared. The paranoia became a constant companion. I questioned my judgment, my trust, everything I had built with her. Was it possible that after 5 years, she had never truly left that world behind? Could she have been keeping secrets all this time, silently undermining the life I thought we shared? I felt torn between love and suspicion, desperately clinging to the person I believed her to be, while my mind unraveled the possibility that the woman I loved had never truly changed. Each day, the tension grew heavier, and the safe world I had built with her felt more fragile with every passing hour. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every instinct screamed at me that her past might still be alive, quietly hidden, but I had no concrete proof yet. I knew I had to find out, but I also knew that confrontation without evidence could destroy whatever trust remained. So, I started quietly investigating, treading a dangerous line between suspicion and obsession. That I went through old emails, scanned for unfamiliar names. I looked at her calendar, noting odd gaps where she claimed to be with friends. I even checked social media messages, carefully piecing together tiny inconsistencies. Each discovery made my stomach tighten, and yet, I told myself I might be overreacting. Maybe these were just coincidences. One night, I stayed up late, cross-referencing dates and locations from receipts and notes I had stumbled upon before. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. The places she said she was going, the times she was out with friends, they all intersected with names on that mysterious list I found earlier. My heart raced. I felt betrayed, but I needed certainty. I couldn't live in doubt forever. That I reached out discreetly to a few people she claimed were old acquaintances. Innocent questions, casual chats, nothing that would give away my suspicions. But even their hesitant answers, the way they avoided specifics, made me feel like I was uncovering a hidden world I had been blind to for too long. At the same time, I struggled with my emotions. Anger battled with love, fear battled with hope. I kept replaying our life together, questioning every smile, every promise. How much of it had been genuine? How much had been carefully curated lies? The questions haunted me, keeping sleep at by the end of the week. I had a collection of small, undeniable clues. Nothing explosive yet, but enough to plant seeds of doubt I could no longer ignore. My love for her was real, but so was the growing unease gnawing at the edges of my heart. I knew the moment of truth was approaching, and I feared both the answer and the fallout that would come with it. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had discovered. Every moment of the day, my mind replayed the subtle clues, the hidden notes, the strange patterns, and I felt like I was standing on a cliff edge, teetering between disbelief and undeniable betrayal. My emotions were chaotic: anger, sorrow, love, and fear all intertwined in a way that made even breathing feel heavy. That I found myself questioning everything about her, about us. Had the past truly ever been behind her? Or had I been living in a carefully crafted illusion? Every laugh we shared, every quiet night at home, now felt like it could have been built on lies. I loved her deeply, but the thought of deception made me feel sick, as if my heart was being twisted from the inside. That I tried to imagine reasons, any explanation that could make sense of it without destroying the woman I thought I knew. Maybe it was just remnants of old contacts, old friends keeping in touch. Maybe she had no malicious intent. But the evidence I had slowly pieced together whispered a darker story. The conflict wasn't just about her actions. It was about me, about my choices. I had ignored warnings, dismissed friends' concerns, and convinced myself love alone could conquer the past. Now, the weight of my own decisions pressed down on me. A painful reminder that hope doesn't always protect us from reality. Late at night, I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining the confrontation I dreaded. What would I say? How could I face her without losing control? Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, to unearth the truth immediately. Another part, terrified of what I might find, begged me to wait, to hold on to the hope that nothing had changed. The emotional conflict consumed me, making even simple decisions feel impossible. I loved her, yes, but the gnawing doubt, the sense of betrayal creeping into my thoughts, created a tension so thick it felt suffocating. Each passing day, the struggle between trust and fear grew stronger, and I realized that the life we had built might not survive the revelations yet to come. That I couldn't stand the uncertainty any longer. The questions had built up like a storm inside me, and I knew I had to confront her, no matter how terrifying the truth might be. That evening, I waited until she returned from her supposed friends' gathering. The apartment felt heavier than usual, the air thick with tension, my heart hammering in anticipation of what was to come. She walked in, smiling briefly, unaware of the storm brewing in me. I forced a calmness I didn't feel, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk," I said, my eyes locking onto hers, searching for any hint of honesty or guilt. She tilted her head slightly, a playful curiosity in her eyes. "About what?" she asked, though I could see a flicker of apprehension. That I took a deep breath, struggling to control the anger rising inside me. "I found some things, some notes, some patterns, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you still involved with anyone from your past? Any of your old clients?" Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, but she quickly masked it. "What are you talking about?" "You're imagining things," she said softly, almost too calm that I felt my blood boil. "I'm not imagining anything. I've pieced this together, and I can't ignore it anymore. I need the truth right now." My voice cracked, betraying the hurt I tried to hide. She looked at me, her expression unreadable, and for a moment, I saw a shadow of something I hadn't seen before. Fear, maybe guilt, maybe defiance. She opened her mouth, and I braced myself for the confession I both wanted and dreaded. But instead, she laughed softly, nervously. "You really think I'm still like that? That I haven't changed?" Her words, though calm, did nothing to calm the raging storm in me. I felt trapped between love and betrayal, between the woman I thought I knew and the possibility that she had been hiding secrets all along. The confrontation had begun, but the answers I sought were still out of reach, and the tension between us was now a tangible, suffocating presence in the room that I couldn't sleep that night. My mind raced, turning over every word, every expression, every little inconsistency I had noticed over the past weeks. I needed answers, and I knew I had to dig deeper before the confrontation would have any real meaning. The next day, I went through her things while she was out, something I had promised myself I'd never do. But desperation made me break every line of principle. In her drawer, hidden beneath layers of seemingly mundane items, I found it, a small notebook, edges worn, pages filled with notes, contacts, and dates. My hands trembled as I flipped through it, each name and number confirming my worst suspicions. And then I saw something that stopped me cold. A set of names with accompanying notes about meetings and services, recent ones, within the last few months. My stomach twisted violently. All those years of trust, of believing in the life we had built, now felt like a fragile illusion that could collapse at any moment. That I felt my vision blur with anger and disbelief. How could she have done this? After everything, after the promises, after our children? I couldn't fathom it. My hands shook as I realized the magnitude of the betrayal. And then my eyes caught a small section labeled with my children's initials. My heart pounded violently. Could it be possible? I immediately scheduled paternity tests, my mind spinning with fear and anticipation. The idea that the twins might not be mine was unbearable, and yet the evidence seemed to point toward it. Each passing hour before the results came back felt like torture. I couldn't focus, couldn't eat, couldn't think of anything but the possibility that my life, my family, and the trust one had placed in her had all been a lie. The discovery shattered something deep inside me, a combination of betrayal, grief, and anger I had never known. And while I waited for confirmation, I knew one thing: nothing would ever feel safe or real again. The life we had built, the love I had believed in, hung by a thread, and the storm I had sensed for so long was finally here. The waiting was unbearable. Every minute stretched into an eternity as I tried to focus on work, on daily routines, on anything to distract myself from the dread gnawing at my stomach. But no matter what I did, my mind kept circling back to one horrifying thought. What if the twins weren't mine? What if everything I believed in, the life we had built, the love I had felt, was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion? Finally, the call came. My hands were trembling so violently that I could barely hold the phone. I stepped into the hallway, needing to be alone, needing space to process what I was about to hear. "The results are back," the voice on the other end said. "I'm afraid I have some difficult news." I swallowed hard, my heart hammering. What is it?" I barely managed to whisper. "They are not biologically yours," the technician said gently, almost apologetically. The words hit me like a freight train. I felt as if the ground had vanished beneath me. My knees weakened, my vision blurred, and I gripped the wall for support, struggling to breathe. Shock, disbelief, anger, and an almost unbearable sadness all collided inside me at once. I felt betrayed on every level, not just as a partner, but as a father, as a husband, as someone who had devoted himself entirely to another person. I thought I had saved her, believed in her transformation, trusted that the past was behind us. And now, everything was unraveling before my eyes as I sat down heavily, head in my hands, trying to make sense of it. How could she have hidden this from me for so long? How could she have carried on, letting me love and provide, all while keeping secrets that undermined the very foundation of our family? Anger burned through me, hot and consuming, but so did a profound sorrow. I felt cheated, humiliated, and utterly alone, even in the home we had built together. The revelation changed everything. It was no longer about suspicion or minor secrets. It was about an entire life built on lies, and the realization that I might never fully recover from the betrayal. I couldn't wait another second. The truth had to come out, no matter the consequences. I found her in the living room, casually scrolling on her phone, completely unaware of the storm about to hit her. My heart pounded, and my hands shook as I forced myself to speak. "We need to talk. Now," I said, my voice low but trembling with anger and hurt. She looked up, startled. "What's wrong?" she asked, her casual demeanor faltering slightly as she noticed the tension in my expression. That I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I know everything. The clients, the notes, and the paternity tests. My words hit the room like a hammer, heavy and final. Her face paled. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off, unable to contain the torrent of emotion inside me. You lied to me for years. You let me love you, trust you, build a life with you. And you've been hiding this the entire time. Tears welled in her eyes. I, I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered, her voice cracking. I thought, I thought I could protect you from my past. Protect me, I shouted, my voice echoing in the room. By lying about our own children, by betraying the very family we built. My chest heaved with anger and heartbreak. Do you even understand what you've done? She sank to the couch, burying her face in her hands, sobbing quietly. I stood there, frozen between the desire to scream and the need to just leave, to escape the suffocating weight of the betrayal. The woman I had loved, the person I had believed in, was no longer who I thought she was. The confrontation left the room thick with silence, broken only by her quiet sobs. I realized, in that moment, that our lives had changed irreversibly. Trust was shattered, love was tainted, and the future I had imagined, our future, was now uncertain, hanging by a fragile thread of despair and anger. The days that followed the confrontation felt surreal, like I was living in someone else's nightmare. Every glance at her, every attempt at conversation, was tainted by the betrayal. I couldn't see her without thinking about the hidden life she had led, the secrets she had carried for years, and the deception she had built around our family. I found myself pacing the apartment late at night, running my hands through my hair, my mind spinning with anger, grief, and disbelief. I replayed every memory we had shared, searching for signs, clues, anything I might have missed. How could I have been so blind? How could love have made me ignore reality for so long? The twins were innocent, unaware of the storm tearing through our lives. Yet even they were part of the cruel revelation. They were not mine, biologically, and the weight of that truth pressed down on me like a stone in my chest. I loved them, of course I did, but the knowledge that someone else was their father created a gnawing tension I couldn't escape that I tried. Talking to friends, anyone who might offer advice or solace, but the words felt hollow. They listened, nodded, but I could see their pity, their disbelief. I told you so, I imagined them thinking. But it didn't help. It only reminded me that everyone had warned me, and yet I had ignored them, blinded by hope and love. Every time she approached me, I felt my resolve weakening, but also my rage rising. The love I had once felt seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the sharp sting of betrayal. I realized that I had reached my breaking point, not just emotionally, but morally. I had to decide what to do next, how to protect myself, and whether I could ever forgive her or even continue living in the same house, the same life that now felt poisoned. The breaking point wasn't a single moment. It was a culmination of years of deception, a realization that my entire perception of our life together had been shattered. I felt lost, trapped between love, anger, and the unbearable weight of a truth I could no longer ignore. And deep down, I knew that the decisions I would make in the coming days would determine whether I could survive the aftermath or be consumed by it entirely. I spent hours alone in the quiet of our apartment, trying to think clearly, trying to weigh my options, but clarity remained elusive. Every possible choice seemed like a dagger twisting deeper into my chest. Stay and try to rebuild trust? Leave and sever all ties? Or find some middle ground that didn't exist yet? The twins were asleep in their rooms, innocent of the chaos that had erupted around them. Seeing them, I realized that whatever decision I made, it would ripple through their lives forever. My love for them conflicted sharply with my anger and heartbreak. I wanted to protect them, yet I felt betrayed, manipulated, and humiliated by the woman I had trusted completely. I reflected on our 5 years together, the moments of laughter, the shared dreams, the sacrifices I had made believing in a future with her. And I contrasted that with the deception, the lies, the ongoing secret life that had now been fully exposed. The scale of betrayal was overwhelming, but so was my attachment, my love, my hope that she could change, that we could survive. That I debated whether confrontation and ultimatums would help or only make things worse. Could I forgive? Could I even trust her again? My emotions were a chaotic storm, grief, rage, love, fear, and desperation all colliding in ways that left me nearly paralyzed. Finally, I made a decision, not a final one, but the first step toward reclaiming control over my life. I would confront her with boundaries, demand full transparency, and protect the twins emotionally, whatever the outcome. I couldn't undo the past, but I could shape the future. This was my breaking point turned into action, the moment where indecision ended and determination began. The weight lifted slightly, though the tension remained palpable. I knew the days ahead would be painful, unpredictable, and challenging, beyond measure. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a small spark of agency, a flicker of hope that I could navigate this storm without losing myself completely. The next morning, I could no longer hold back. I approached her calmly, forcing my voice to remain steady, but inside, I felt every nerve on fire. "We need to talk. Now," I said, my gaze locked onto hers, unwavering. She looked up, sensing the seriousness in my tone. "Okay, what is it this time?" Her voice carried a nervous edge that hadn't been there before. That I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every suppressed emotion crash into the room. "I need to know everything. No more secrets, no more lies. I want the full truth about your past, the clients, and about the twins. I can't live in this uncertainty any longer." Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw real fear there. She hesitated, swallowed, and then quietly admitted, I made mistakes. I thought I could leave it all behind for us, for the kids, but some things weren't as easy to erase as I hoped." I felt anger boil up, but I also felt the aching sadness of love betrayed. "Mistakes," I repeated, my voice breaking. "You let me believe in a life that never fully existed. I loved you, trusted you, and you built your lies around me. Do you understand what that means?" She sank into a chair, tears rolling down her cheeks. I know, and I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. I wanted a chance to be better, to be someone worthy of your love." I shook my head, torn between rage and the remnants of affection. The room was heavy with silence, each second stretching longer than the last. I realized that even though the truth was out, even though confrontation had finally happened, the road ahead would be anything but easy. Forgiveness, trust, and rebuilding, if it was even possible, would be a battle far longer than any argument or revelation. In that moment, I understood that our lives had been irrevocably changed. The confrontation was only the beginning, the spark that would ignite the next chapter of pain, reflection, and, perhaps, eventual closure. The days that followed were a blur of tension, silence, and emotional exhaustion. Every corner of our apartment, every shared memory, seemed tainted by the betrayal that had been revealed. I found myself walking on eggshells, unsure of how to interact with her, unsure of how to exist in a space that once felt like home. The twins were oblivious to the storm around them, laughing and playing, but every smile and giggle was now tinged with a painful awareness that their father might not be who they thought he was. My love for them didn't waver, but the bond I had imagined, the biological certainty, was gone, leaving a hollow ache that wouldn't disappear. I tried to reestablish some normalcy, routines that could provide stability for the children, but even mundane tasks carried the weight of betrayal. Preparing meals, bedtime stories, morning routines, they were reminders of what had been shattered. Trust was gone, replaced by suspicion and lingering questions I couldn't shake. Friends reached out, offering support and advice, but nothing could prepare me for the psychological toll of knowing the life I had believed in was built on lies. I found myself reflecting constantly, replaying moments, wondering what signs I had missed, and fearing what else might still be hidden. The emotional exhaustion was compounded by anger, grief, and a deep sense of loss. I realized that moving forward would not be a matter of forgiveness alone, but of rebuilding my own sense of self, reclaiming control over my life, and deciding how, or if, I could continue in a relationship that had been so fundamentally compromised. And yet, amidst the pain and confusion, a small glimmer of clarity emerged. I had survived this far. I could navigate the aftermath, make deliberate choices, and protect my emotional well-being. The betrayal was profound, but it did not define me. It was a harsh lesson, a painful chapter, but not the entirety of my story. Weeks passed, and the raw edges of betrayal slowly dulled into a painful awareness. I had confronted the truth, faced the lies, and endured the emotional storm that threatened to consume me. The house was quieter now, the tension still lingering, but I felt a subtle shift within myself, a growing sense of control, of reclaiming my life from the chaos that I focused on the twins, building routines that fostered stability and love. They were innocent, bright, and resilient, and my role as their father, emotional or biological, became a source of purpose and grounding. I realized that while the past could not be erased, the present and future could still be shaped with intention and care. That my relationship with her had irrevocably changed. We were no longer the couple I had once imagined. Forgiveness was distant, trust a fragile thread, but confrontation had forced clarity. I knew now that survival meant boundaries, honesty, and an unwavering commitment to protect my heart and the children's well-being in the quiet moments. I reflected on the lessons learned, the danger of ignoring red flags, the weight of blind hope, and the importance of valuing oneself amidst betrayal. I had loved deeply, suffered profoundly, and emerged scarred, yet wiser. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I felt a cautious optimism, a readiness to rebuild. Not with her, necessarily, but with myself, the twins, and a life I could trust again. The past would always be a shadow, but it no longer defined me. I was reclaiming my narrative, taking the first steps toward a future where honesty, love, and self-respect could coexist once more. This was the end of that chapter, a painful but necessary closure. And with it, the possibility of a new beginning, tempered by experience, yet full of cautious hope.